that.
Yeah, and that's what we do in the Private Lands program. We're connecting with landowners every day, trying to get good information to them, trying to take a lot of this good research that's out there, like what they produce at Mississippi State University Deer Lab, and putting it into layman's terms.
Well, this is the Woodsman Perspective Podcast, and we appreciate you coming back for another episode. We are rolling right into deer season, all the fun deer season things, food plot planting and camera looking at, and
getting ready for velvet season,
watching the weather forecast,
right.
Thinking about rain. And, we made that comparison in time before. When you see those Friday night lights,
it's about time for food plots.
That food plot planting,
right.
and you see people shooting their bow in the yard and just.
Or you see that Ford 3000, or that Kubota now.
Yeah.
Used to be the Ford 3000. Now it's a Kubota 50 horsepower.
Yeah.
Coming through town with that Z71 sitting like that. Yeah. It's probably about time.
Yeah. We got deer on the brain, and we got a real good guest in here with us to talk about deer. And it got some history. So it's funny. So we got Pierce Young. Pierce is assistant coordinator of the Private Lands program in Mississippi. Did I get all that right?
Yeah, assistant coordinator, Private Lands for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife.
Right.
Wildlife biologist from Mississippi State University.
Yep, Mississippi State, did my undergrad. Want to talk about a little bit of that?
Yeah.
That work I did
let's hear about it. Yeah.
So good to be back. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier, homecoming here. I grew up hunting just right down the road from here, and did some of that research from Mississippi State that we'll talk about here in a little bit.
And when he says right down the road, I'm talking about you could almost, if you had two 270s, you could get there. Two of them.
That's right.
So when we got Pierce in here, we had a lot of history, and they kind of hinted at it here. And if you're a regular listener, you've heard us talk a lot about the tagging and the trapping program that happened down here with bucks. Did a long term, an age tagging study on deer. Pierce was involved in that, and I didn't realize this. Pierce's dad and my dad worked together at the paper mill for a long time.
30 years probably.
Got some connections. Just hometown boy.
That's
Good
right.
to have you on here.
Good to be back. That's awesome.
And I follow you on Facebook too, and we'll get to that. I'll put your links in there. But you always you've got some good information, really good social media presence, and you're putting a lot of stuff out there. And we said it when we started this podcast that one of the reasons we did is because there's a lot of sketchy, maybe sketchy.
A little bit of misinformation,
questionable information out there.
Sketchy? You talking about me already? Damn, at least let me get out of the room before you talk about me. Yeah.
But I appreciate that's one of the things. That's one of the positives, and we talked about that some. One of the positives about the technology and being able to put good information. People like you putting good information out there in a way that the regular guy can digest it and apply it. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's what we do in the Private Lands program. We're connecting with landowners every day, trying to get good information to them, trying to take a lot of this good research that's out there, like what they produce at Mississippi State University Deer Lab, and putting it into layman's terms. What a hunter and a manager can understand,
and what the common guy can do and afford.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and putting it to use.
Because everybody can't afford a biologist, a private biologist to come to their place, but the state of Mississippi has guys like you that know the same thing that these other guys have, but can come out there and help them.
That's right. So what we do, we provide a free service through the state of Mississippi, and we have a team of basically wildlife consultants. So if you can't afford a wildlife consultant to come on your place, and if you're in Mississippi, we got you. We'll hook you up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, is that? And I guess that's some of that primary funding source, license sales, things like that.
Yeah,
Robert's money. Or
that's right. Paid through the agency through licensed dollars. 80% of our state is privately owned, and our state agency was tasked, back in 1932 with managing the state's wildlife resources. Well, we can't do that without the private landowner.
Yeah, I was wanting to get into that a little bit. That's there's something to me in that title, and I'll say this up front, like I hunt a lot of public land. I'm not a big landowner, but I really appreciate that the state is focused and has a designated outreach for private land management, because you will never, especially turkeys, but even what we're going to get into, a quality deer, in good deer management, you can't fix it on public land alone.
That's right.
You've got to get buy-in. You've got participation from these private landowners, because they're invested.
Right.
You know, and they got a name on a deed. They're invested. They're financially, you know, personally, their family. You know, a lot of his family tracks, and I appreciate. I like that we have a private land program.
That's right. Good deal.
You know, Pierce, a lot of people will hit Brent up. Man, how do you kill these big deer?
And nobody ever asked me that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they may ask you to ask me.
Yeah, that's right.
But, you know, I tell them, you got to let them get old.
That's right.
You got to let them get some age to them.
Age.
And you know, and we can go into things that you can't make. Number one is location, genetics, but age, and your trophy, or one of our listeners, wherever they're at, Texas, South Carolina, wherever, a 125 or 130 may be their trophy. My mind may be set on a 170, 180.
Sure.
Okay, that I'm probably keep watching like a thing and not show up.
Mine is an old deer.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what he's got on his head, but a 4.5, 5.5-year-old
so,
deer, to me, regardless.
When we talk about quality deer, it could be the management deer, 5-year-old management deer, old deer, you know, 5 on one side, big club on the other side.
Got that picture.
Yeah, I seen that he's a wild looking thing. Or a show enough true trophy that you've had pictures of since 3.5, 4.5, 5.5.
That's right.
You know, and so the measurement of a trophy is the man behind the gun.
That's right.
Okay, wouldn't you agree with that?
I agree with that.
And so a trophy to somebody else may not be a trophy to you,
but mature deer is not as
you can't
subjective.
listen.
I mean, that's
it don't matter if you let him get some birthdays. Then all of these different scenarios can come true. Okay, but kind of tell, you know, and what got me thinking about this and Brent and getting Pierce in was, we did a study. And I want you to talk about it. We did a study when he was a young fletchling. and I got a little. I look. He's down in. We was looking at some food plots a while ago, and I looked at gray hair, and I said, "You got two kids?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Hey, I got two too, my hair, but he's got more on top than I got." But Pierce, kind of tell me a little bit about education, how you got into, and our kind of a little bit on our trap, and we won't get into a lot of it, but it
a lot of takeaways. From
it taught me a lot. It taught you a lot because you pretty much ran it.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty cool thing, but let's kind of get into and that study because we were trying. That's right. Let's know Pierce first, then we'll jump right in.
So you know, I grew up here, you know, hunting.
Lowndes County guy.
Lowndes County, right over here.
New Hope guy.
New Hope. That's right. You know, and so growing up, I mean, when our hunting club was in DMAP for years, and
that was the old mill club. It was a Weyerhaeuser mill then, and they called it the mill club. And it was what, 3,000-4,000 acres?
That's right.
That club.
Yeah. A little bit of ag, a little bit of timber,
had a little bit of everything.
You know? And so that got my passion for deer hunting. You know, I've got some good ones on the wall from that place.
Heck yeah.
You know, from putting some time in over there. But that's what got that passion for deer management, wildlife management, and then happened to meet William McKinley one day, our deer coordinator now.
Yeah.
I call him a friend and a mentor now, and
he was a classmate of mine.
Yeah, there you go. And then he got me taking around it. You know, he told me, you know, what he was, wildlife biologist. I didn't know what that was. You know,
right.
And being in high school and stuff, and I said, well, how do I do what you're doing? And he said, well, this is what you got to do. You can go to school, you know, wildlife biology, all that stuff. Got to meet Bronson, Strickland, you know, Agent Jawbones with them and all that stuff. So went through school and then, you know, got to Mississippi State. And then
that's one of the best programs in the country, too.
Yeah.
So that's a big benefit of this region.
A lot of research.
Yeah. That's right.
Back then.
So as this study we're about to talk about, this Lowndes County study, as I was going to Mississippi State, before I even got there, you know, we did a little pilot study, and the big questions around this study were really focused on, you know, what is a management buck, what is a cold buck, you know, and there were some studies done before in the deer pens, MSU deer pens down in South Texas, you know, and it really starting in the 80s, you know, the once a spike, always a spike.
That's right.
Myth.
Yeah.
You know, was going on, and so it was kind of disproven that once spike, always spike. But then the question was, what about a small spike versus a big spike?
Right.
A lot of places were saying, maybe 75, 80% of your 1-year-olds are spikes. So
the old legendary cow horn spike.
Yeah,
every club had one of those.
Yeah.
And there was a time, especially where management bucks, they were just shooting all spikes. Was that
That's right? I remember that. Yeah, it had spike tags.
Yeah. So was that right or wrong? And we really didn't know, and that's kind of what this study kind of went into. But to kind of back up a little bit, kind of to preface that a little bit more, going in, this study is going to talk about, and give some guidance on how anyone anywhere can really select management bucks or cull bucks.
Yeah.
But some things people may want to think about first, and we'll get into like what you were wanting to talk about with age structure, is shooting management bucks really what you need to be doing first, or are there some more important things? And so you really want to go down the list of, one, is my property big enough? Can I manage a herd? Can you work in a co-op? So this study we're about to talk about, it was 24 landowners, 27,000 acres.
Yep. We all got together.
Got together, and is that big enough? Well, I'm about to tell you, if it was or not, and some pros and cons to all this stuff. But then also, what's your management goal? Do you want, like you were saying, do you want to grow those trophy bucks? If you want bucks to reach their full potential, they really need to get to 5-6 years old. That's when
and have that list habitat.
That's right. Nutrition.
Yes.
The 3 keys.
Genetics. They got to have all that.
Genetics. We got good genetics down on the coast.
Yeah.
Central Mississippi, Hills, Delta, here in the Black Prairie, all good genetics. But there's everywhere there's good and bad.
Yeah.
The biggest limitation really is oftentimes either nutrition or age. Mississippi is actually really good, one of the best states, in the United States at getting bucks to older ages. But they're not all going to be what some people consider trophies.
So
right?
I saw that in a study that Mississippi, like the average, there's like 3.5 was the average, like harvest.
Ranks up to King Ranch.
Yeah, and that's that doesn't sound high. A lot of us pride ourselves maybe not shooting, but for an average statewide, that's pretty old, and that's doing a pretty good job of getting deer to maturity somewhat.
Yeah, 75, 80%. We've been
especially as long as our dang season is.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
elephant in the closet.
Because those borderline bucks in January start looking pretty good.
Yeah. As them rib cages getting there, that rack gets wider.
That's right.
Really. You let him go, then you shoot him last day of season. You're like, almighty.
So after we talk about the study and the results, all that, we'll get into more of how to use those results to pick management bucks. But I always tell people, if you don't have a big enough property, you're not working with your neighbors, if you're not trying to get them to older age classes, if you're not meeting your doe quota, if you have a doe quota and you ain't meeting it, you don't need to be thinking about management bucks or cull bucks.
Because they eating you at house and homes, what you're saying. Yeah.
It's just sort of this feels like maybe that first conversation you have with landowners in your job. Mm-hmm. When you sit down, you start talking about goals and objectives and what they're doing now.
Yeah, cull bucks or management bucks, that's really a cherry on top, because to get into some of the pros of taking some of those bucks out, that aren't your trophies,
but they're old big deer.
Yeah, big deer, or even taking out some earlier, which we'll talk about that a little bit more. What that might mean, but a 200-pound buck, he's eating 2 tons of vegetation a year. You go try to pick out 2 tons of leaves that a deer likes to eat and make 2 tons out of it. That's a lot of vegetation.
Especially in a pine plantation. Or poor quality habitat.
Yeah,
that's right.
So if, like, where most of my career has been in central Mississippi, very high deer densities, and when we do a camera survey, even if they shot every doe they saw, they still would have too many deer, because if they're not shooting bucks.
Yeah.
Not all the bucks are going to meet what someone would consider a trophy.
And I heard you say earlier, a lot of people don't shoot their bucks because they pay too much attention to the rack.
That's right.
And they let them get older and older and older. And hey, you look at Casanova 8-point.
Yeah.
That's about 185 pounds. he'd be 13 years old still sliding through.
Yeah.
That's
so,
right.
so what you're saying is the two of the main reasons you would consider taking these management bucks out are the amount of food they can eat, and depending on your deer density, taking out all the does, shooting every doe still may not get you down to your numbers. So
That's right.
may be there's a case to be made for shooting some bucks as part of your overall herd management for deer numbers, regardless of sex.
That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I've seen this too, especially on properties that may have been in DMAP for 30, 40 years. You know, they have no problem getting bucks to older age, but they have so many bucks they're just letting go because they're looking for that 10% or that 3% or that 1%.
Well, we're running that camera. We're running that camera, and we see that 150, or we see that 130, whatever's the trophy for you.
Right.
But we don't want to do one thing until we kill him.
Yeah, you don't
to jeopardize. So if I go shoot 2 ragheads, bucks, I may scare that older buck. I do it. I mean, you do. I mean, I do it. It's just one of those things, and you call it high grading, but basically, I guess that's what you're doing.
Yeah, or even low grading sometimes.
Yeah,
you know, but what I've seen with some of these properties that do that, they're shooting the number of does they need to shoot. They're letting their best bucks get old, but they're protecting that 10, 20%. Well, that means 80, 90% are just out there eating vegetation.
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen this too. I've seen this on the club I grew up in. You could have a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old buck, 5 points, but he's big and he's got a dominant personality. You know, I've seen one kick all the best young bucks, you know, off the gas line.
We know all about that, yeah.
You know, so...
But another thing, Pierce, and you can't teach this, but this is what we talk about on these podcasts. You hunted in clubs all your life. You could name 10 people that could identify a 4-year-old deer. They'd shoot the wrong damn one every time.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It's hard. It's hard. So kind of getting at what Britton was wanting to talk about as far as, you know, identifying those old bucks. If you can't age bucks, you know, then shooting culls and management bucks is definitely not for you yet.
That's right.
You know,
that's right. It comes
there's
with
all
experience.
these steps. You know, like I said, this management bucks, cull bucks, this is cherry on top.
Yeah.
You know,
and there's a roadmap to get there.
And there's a roadmap to get there. We got to check some boxes first. The one, like you're saying, is I mean, there are properties I've worked with, they have never seen a 4 or 5-year-old buck because they just never get past
they kill
3. You know, so how you know, it's very hard to say, you know, shoot a 5-year-old. You know, wait till they're 5 years old to shoot them when they don't know what one looks like.
Yeah,
you know,
because he's never made it that long.
Yeah, now there's a lot of good information out there. You know, characteristics, and it's just like back in the day. You know, when main beam criteria was implemented. You know, you used to have old timers say, "What do you want me to do? You know, carry a measuring stick out there and figure out how long those main beams are."
That's that dumbness talking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, it was new.
It was new. It was
a change that they weren't ready for.
That's right.
Look, everybody, all you heard then was points and spread.
But those same guys are doing right now.
They learned how to do it.
They learned how to do it.
They learned how to do it, and that's just the same thing with aging bucks. You just got to learn what to look for. You know.
Yeah, and the state did really well on those
promoting it
on those graphics when they put that out.
That nose,
image, the nose
and
beam
everything,
length relative to the nose. Those things to look for.
That's right.
They did a good job at that.
So,
because excitement.
Oh yeah.
Buck fever.
Yeah, looking at the antlers first.
Buck fever will make you blow one cowboy boots off quicker than anything. And I brought people just. I mean, you know, B6.
Also, hunting during the rut, during chasing is a lot different than hunting. You got time to watch deer just walking. Right. You got time to watch him and make a decision.
But
you get over that initial shock.
That's right.
You grew up, and we give his daddy. He's got one of the finest daddies ever made.
That's right.
Mark Young, one of the best cats. I mean, I ain't seen him in a long time, and you told me he's still working. I was like, yeah, that sounds like him.
That's right.
He's just one of those kind of guys. And Mark was, when we was in this trapping program, Mark represented the Mill Club. And so I got to deal with Mark and got to know him on a personal basis, and you too. And you got to find Daddy. So that, you know, Apple was right there close. But you know, you growing up, y'all always had a criteria at the Mill Club. You had y'all were trying to shoot better deer. When me and Brent grew up, we shot any deer we saw because we was having to see one. We didn't have no places. We didn't have any place to hunt. So look, if you killed an 8 point that big, he rode in back at S10,
that Ford Ranger.
at S10 from that Ford Ranger till he ruined because it was a big deal.
Oh yeah.
But as I started,
and there wasn't no
studying,
processor there.
That's right. As I started, we could carry it over to Uncle Jimmy's and then man, there's some good horns. Where them loins at? But knowing those deer until I started going to some of these managed places right down here. Really good friends with a lawyer past y'all's place. Mm-hmm. And hunting on places where I couldn't shoot them.
Right.
And started watching them. Mm-hmm. I learned more about them.
That's right.
I learned so much. I tell people all the time, you'll learn so much more about a deer when you don't intend to shoot them.
When you can't
right.
shoot.
If you'll just watch them. Mm-hmm. And it's, when somebody puts a law or regulation on you, you go to a hunting club, hey, you can't shoot him till he's 140 inches. What? And then you have the best hunt of your life, and you never pull the trigger.
Right.
And so that's all. So what got me was experience of being made not to shoot them.
Right.
So when I raised my 2 girls hunting, I would let them shoot what they wanted to, but I would talk to them. Mm-hmm. So after they shot a couple, they were like, okay, I want to shoot a bigger one. I want to shoot one of these dead.
That's right.
So it's all in the education. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if you've done something your whole, like you said, Brent, you've done something your whole life, change is tough to you sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's all a learning curve. Yeah. Everyone's got a different starting point on what that learning curve is, and depending on what your goal is for the place, that's where the finish line is, right? So, but if you got high expectations, you got a lot more boxes to check, and aging deer nowadays is where most people are going,
You talking about aging them on the hoof?
Aging them on the hoof.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
That's where cameras help a lot.
Oh my God. They make it easy.
When you know that deer, and there's a lot of stuff we kind of hee-haw at cameras and that technology. Mm-hmm. But when you know that deer, and so when he steps out, you don't necessarily have that shot because you know what deer, you've made the decision already. Mm-hmm. And I think that helps.
When you have 100 pictures of a borderline buck, mm-hmm. and he finally steps out, that buck fever's gone. And it's because of that camera.
Yeah.
Now, you may still shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't over buck fever.
It wasn't over buck fever. You in it because you ain't surprised.
Yeah.
You knew him.
So especially with technology now, because now you have a cell camera. They're cheaper. They can take bursts. You can get multiple pictures of the same deer.
Right.
And bucks are going to move. You're going to have bigger deer come in, bigger deer leave, all this stuff. But then we have the resources like, you can find, we have it on our website, characteristics to look at. National Deer Association does too, we have biologists. Like I guarantee you my phone's been dinging since we've been sitting here with people this time of year, asking me, how old do you think this deer is? I'm trying to learn,
I got a bunch of them started last week.
Yeah. So all month, how old is this deer? How old is this deer? And so we're trying to teach people and you're talking about characteristics. Biggest one for me that I want to look at, especially, after September 1st in Mississippi, because before that, when they're still got that summer look, it's just
lean,
hard. They got, so the closer you get to fall, the more they're going to have those characteristics we want to look at.
Muscle tone,
fat,
neck,
especially neck. Biggest thing I look at is how far the base of that neck is going down his chest.
It's hard to cheat that neck. Yeah,
that's right. When his head's looking up, because even late season, if he's drawn down, he's lost 30% of his body weight.
He's still big here.
He's still big in the chest. That next, if it's a mature buck, it's going to connect all the way down to the brisket. Yep. With his head straight up. It's going to be all the way down the brisket. 3-4-year-old buck, where it curves into the chest there's going to be a little bit of a gap before that brisket, right? Mm-hmm. Also,
I'll try to put some images up too on the video.
Yeah, if y'all got that would
I know we've got.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Also, typically, at 3 years old, usually that rump looks bigger than that shoulder. Mm-hmm. And as you get to 4 and 5, that shoulder, it looks more front end loaded. If you were to try to tip him on, on his chest, which way is he going to lean? Is he going to fall forward or fall back? 2 or 3 year old, you're just going to fall back towards his hind end, where a 4 or 5 year old
barrel chested,
more front end loaded,
big old head.
Yeah, that neck is blending in with the head, is blending in the shoulders, especially at the top. When you get to 4 years of age, and even at 4 years of age, most people or most deer in most part of our state are 90, 95, 98%, depending on where you're at, of what they would be at 5. Now, I tell people not to target 4-year-olds. Because, if you
may have that wow factor when he starts throwing out the crazy stuff off as he gets 6 or 7, right?
Yeah, but also just there's going to be some overlap in age. Like some 3 and 4 year olds look similar, some 4 and 5 year olds look similar. So if you're focusing on 4s, you're going to make some mistakes and shoot some 3s. That's just going to happen. But if you're focused more on shooting 5s and 6s, and you accidentally shoot a 4, you only lost about 10 inches of Boone and Crockett or 5 inches of Boone and Crockett of what he'd been.
Yeah.
You make that mistake and he's 3. Well, that's 20%. Of what
that you've lost.
That you've lost.
Most likely, in most clubs, you're going to get a fine. What I do, just for where I'm at, what my expectation, what I like to do with deer hunting, I focus on a 3 and 4 year old, because for me, I'm generally, if he's 4, unless I'm hunting somewhere where it's very specific, the places I hunt, I'm okay shooting a 4-year-old.
Sure.
So I really focus, for me, being able to recognize the difference between a 3 and a 4-year-old. And those are subtle to the point you were just making. Those, depending on what time in the season, because a deer in December with rut swell, if he looks like a 4-year-old to me, he's probably 3.
That's right.
And that's how I take it. That's
right.
how I look at it. I have a factor I kind of back up. So like right now we're in September, we're mid-September. So to me, the deer looks a year younger this time of year than they actually are on camera. And then when you get in around rut, when they're
look a little bit older,
look a year older. But
Start
that to me
up.
is that critical difference, is being able to recognize the difference between a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. And for me, I go to that tuck back there at the gut.
Right.
Like if they're barrel chested, like that back straight and that belly straight, and they're full in the chest, because usually a 3-year-old is going to have a little bit of a tuck.
Sometime.
For the most part,
Yeah.
and look just a little bit more like that thoroughbred, like a little bit long-legged. When a 4-year-old will lose some of that. 4-year-old kind of looks like, like I said, that barrel, like a big barrel.
Yep. Exactly. So those are all the kind of the things that you want to look at.
Do you ever? And I hear some guys that are pretty good hunters. Do you ever pay much attention to the tarsal glands, the size,
That's
the
another
staining?
good point. Yeah, so
because I've started to really.
Tarsal
I had a
gland.
guy put me on that, and I started watching the known age bucks that I knew were 4 and 5, and there's something to it.
So definitely trying to distinguish between like a 3 and a 4 or 3 plus. And now this is going to be middle season to late season.
Sure.
Getting around the rut, when they really start getting staining. A 4 and 5 year old buck's going to have a big, dark tarsal gland.
Big one.
A lot of times, especially peak rut, it's running down the leg.
Yeah.
A 3-year-old typically is going to be about the size of a silver dollar.
Yeah.
Which for a lot of younger people out there, they might not know what
a little bigger than a
that
golf
is. But a little bigger than a golf ball.
Yeah.
So, but that's a big difference when you get around the rut and
that
especially
age
after
structure.
Yeah. So one of the best references I've heard to tarsal stain using that is when all else is equal. That's a good thing. That's a good sort of tiebreaker.
Use it as part of the toolbox.
So if you're looking at that 4 or 5 year old or 3, and you can't really tell, that's a good one if everything else is equal.
And I tell people a lot of times, don't cut the horns off. Cut them horns off.
Yep.
When you're trying to make a decision and you don't want to make a bad one, cut the horn right off his head.
That's right.
Look at the other things.
That's right.
Because you know this, a Michael Jordan at 3, we'll talk about that in our study, can have that rack.
That's right. That's what I see on a lot of good.
And you look at some of these crazy deer in these pens. Most of them get killed at 3 years old.
Yeah.
And they got all these crazy. So you can grow the rack. Don't pay attention to the rack.
And that's what the learning curve is
And experience comes with
it. Experience, seeing a lot of deer, looking at a lot of pictures, and trying to train yourself to not look at those antlers. Look at the body first. Look at all those, and you don't want to look at just one characteristic like we're talking about. If you can quick check a few of those things. And the way I put it too is like if you're trying to shoot a 5-year-old buck, you're going to know it when you see him. There's going to be it's going to be
you're
no
not going to throw the binoculars
guessing.
up. You're going to pick the gun up.
I call it the oh crap moment.
Yeah.
And when you're like oh crap, and it's you don't have to guess. Now if you're looking at a deer and you're like, man, is he 5? Is he 4? Is he 4 or 3? You don't need to. If you're trying to grow bigger, older bucks,
that's right.
You don't need to pull the trigger.
And people tell me this all the, they'll say some guys say, well, hey, I can't measure them while they're in the woods walking in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then don't fuss about shooting a big deer.
Right.
Because here's the thing.
Management goal.
If you made
not at that point yet, we were
That's
talking
right.
if you've made your mind up when you saw him, you was going to shoot him. It don't matter how old he was, you're going to shoot him. But if you made your mind up, I'm going to watch him, and I'm going to check that box off.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to shoot him. Because a lot of times we rush the shots anyway. As long as he ain't seen you or a dog running behind him,
that's right.
He's probably going to give you a little.
Another tip if they're running.
But Brent, that goes exactly what you said. Run those cameras. You're going to know the deer on your place.
That's right.
I mean, and study them. You're going to know them, so they ain't a surprise until you get one that nobody's seen.
Yeah.
But very rarely, Pearson, I believe you'll go with me on this. There ain't many deer that ain't nobody seen.
Right.
There's so many cameras. Somebody's
but that's
seen.
where there's a crossover sometimes. We're talking about managing for big deer. But in the context of what we're talking about being able to age a deer on the hoof, let's just for a second shoot over to let's talk about it in a hunting context. If I made up my mind I want to shoot mature deer no matter where I'm at, well, I may be on a tract of public land 5 states away.
Sure.
So and that camera and that's out of the picture.
It's out of the picture.
You got to be able to do it on, and that's where I think it's important being able to know.
Unless you have a place of your own. That's right.
Regionally, that deer will look a lot different. That 4-year-old in Kansas, or that 3-year-old in Kansas will look like a 4 or 5-year-old in some places in the South. So.
Can be now. A lot of those characteristics we're talking about. I mean, that can go across the range. Because I've been on properties in coastal plains. in Alerce Hills and the Delta. And scale is different.
But
body weight
are same.
Characteristics. Especially the neck where it connects down. The shoulders versus the rump, the proportions and those characteristics. Just like if I like to use this analogy, if we go into Walmart or Bass Pro or something, and we're looking around, and you see a kid, you kind of know, all right, that kid's probably in elementary school, or that guy, he's probably retired, or that guy's probably in his 30s. How do we know that? Just
not the size. That's your point.
Because we know. And the same. So you can put these categories on these deer. A 1-year-old, 2-year-old, are going to look a little bit different. 3 or 4, there's going to be a little bit of overlap. Because if me and LeBron James are the same age, I mean, we're gonna look a lot different, even though we're the same age. But those characteristics are typically kind of the same, right? You can kind of tell what within 10 years for a human. Or within 1 year with a deer.
That's right.
Right. So, but it takes time and checking out and knowing what you're comfortable with and what your goal is and all that type of stuff. So, anyway, those are some things to think about.
Yeah.
Before even considering.
Does demeanor? What about demeanor?
Like
posture,
personality? No. Absolutely not.
Okay.
I've seen.
You have that red-headed kid that always wants to hit people at recess. It don't matter how old he is. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I've learned that it doesn't matter what's on their head. It doesn't really even matter how old they are.
Yeah.
I've seen some monster 5-year-old bucks that are just complete wusses.
Get pushed around by
a younger, more aggressive, just personality buck. And not necessarily to say the biggest antlered young buck. And we put a lot of emphasis on bigger antlers as hunters, but in just evolution of deer, the prime size for a buck as far as survival and fighting goes is your average 8-point. That's what they want to be. That gives them an advantage. A wide rack is not an advantage when you're trying to fight other bucks.
Well, you lose leverage.
Leverage, exactly. Mm-hmm. So I've absolutely seen personality makes, and that's a big reason. That brings up a good point on why management bucks. Why you might want to shoot management bucks. I've seen this multiple times with properties I'll give one example. One property I worked with early in my career. They had been had the property for 4 years, been shooting a lot of does, doing a lot of habitat management, good food plots. They said, we have never shot a nice mature buck on this place. We have mature bucks, but just not a trophy quality. And so as I was working with them, did camera surveys, I was like, you just got too many deer, just in general. And he would say, he's like, you're right. A lot of my young, nice bucks, I never see them at 3 years old, because they had no space. There's too much competition.
Well, and look, you don't want to have to fight every time you go get a bowl of Fruity Pebbles.
That's right. Yeah.
And I like Fruity Pebbles.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you don't want to have to fight to go eat every time. And when you got all that.
There's only so much space.
They can't take it. They got to.
That's right.
They got to get out of there.
So this property, we took some of this data that we're about to talk about from this research, and I applied it to this property, and they went from shooting no bucks in 4 years to the first year we did the camera survey, we had 35 bucks on the hit list. They shot 26 of them.
That's awesome. Boy,
management bucks, total bucks.
Yeah.
Within 4 years, they were shooting those. I remember when he called me, he shot 171-inch buck, biggest buck he'd ever seen. They've been shooting a lot of management bucks, but that was the first real trophy. And since then, they have been taking those 2-year-old bucks, and they're staying on the place. They have places to stay.
So they're keeping that Michael Jordan. They're protecting the superstar.
That's right.
Because they're getting rid of that bully.
That's right. Yeah. And we'll talk about more of that.
And food too.
It's going to make a lot more sense when we get into the results of this study.
Well, let's talk about this study. Let's talk about the study and so Dr. Demarais come to us as a group, and he was trying to find a location, and so William McKinley.
Yep, kind of his brainchild, this study.
Land Whiff.
Make sure that
and Dr. Demarais we all had a meeting down here and said, Chris, we want to set this up, and you think we could get everybody on board? I said, yeah, I think so. And and I said, well, what's it going to cost us? And they, he broke down. So we started, which helped. Y'all stuck 11,000, 12,000 acres in at one time.
Right.
Warehouser. So that helps you. That puts you chunked, and
that's right.
We started stair-stepping. So anyway, we had meetings and we set it all up. So we agreed to do a 5-year study where we was trapping known age bucks. We were trying to go after button bucks, spikes.
Yep.
We would rather
6
button bucks. We knew that's right.
olds.
We were trying to tag and we would catch them nets, boxes. You get into a little bit. We tried them with the darts. It didn't work too great, but the nets and the boxes worked really great.
And to explain for some people that might not know, so when we say known age bucks, the reason we were catching fawns and 1-year-olds and not any other size or age bucks is we do know their exact age because they still have their baby teeth.
That's right.
They only have
and
teeth.
they got a button bucks and they're had buttons.
But I mean, the reason we knew like a 2-year-old spike versus 1-year-old spike, looking at their teeth,
that milk teeth,
the milk teeth, right? They had not replaced their baby teeth yet, so we knew
known age.
There was no guessing that they were what their age was. We knew exactly how old they were.
And we agreed as a group to not shoot these deer.
Yeah, we'll get into
that.
Yeah,
for 5 years. So we would catch them, tag them, and we tagged them with cattle tags put in their ears.
Yeah,
and we had different colors for the different years, so we would know the ages. So I think our first ones were orange. Is that right?
Orange and yellow.
Yeah.
Actually, it was yellow with the
yellow. That's right.
So to go back to the first year and give it from my perspective, the club I hunted in was part of this.
That's right.
Project.
Was the biggest landowner of it, really.
And so MSU and the grad students from that, which we ended up not having a grad student on this project, was
right.
That was kind of unusual.
Right.
We'll get into my role with that later, but they had tried some of this with some Williams clubs on the Big Black, Talent County and stuff. Put some, and the main thing we wanted to know is, as they grew older, was there a difference in the big spikes and the small spikes? Mm-hmm. Would that translate at older ages? Are these smaller spikes the smaller bucks at older ages?
They're always going to be behind.
Right. Yeah. So I came in just being part of one of the clubs and helping bait some of these stands. We started with the night vision and the dart guns, and
that was a joke.
Man, it was rough. Back then there was really only one dart company, and they had a one-way charge, and it was supposed to shoot the drug into the deer. Well, there was a bunch of times. I remember one time me and Land Wolf came out there with the antenna and the thing, and we were circling around the bait pile trying to figure out which direction this deer that had gotten darted. And I looked down and I was like, "What is this?" It was the transmitter.
Yeah.
They had put the one-way charge in backwards, and it blew the company that made these darts.
Right.
It wasn't anything on the user or anything, and it shot the and so that dart, and that deer.
That first year was a learning lesson.
Deer laid out there somewhere unconscious for a little
He's
while.
up there going, beep, beep. I mean, he's like, damn, I just want a little corn.
Yeah. So that first pilot year, we only got 3 bucks.
Yeah, it was
yellow tag bucks. That next year, we brought in.
That's when you come in. You come in the second year.
I was coming in. I had just started at MSU, started working at the deer pens, and they were going to do January and February. They were just going to do box traps. So y'all put up some money to build these.
We built a bunch of box traps.
Stevenson box traps, like they had used when they were
restocked back in the 50s.
Yeah, based on the plan from the restocking era and all of that. And there were some differences, which we learned later, but they had gotten a guy, they had put it out to hire a technician for January, February to run these box traps. We had 24 of them.
Yeah. And
to back up too, we didn't mention, so this was 24 landowners on 27,000 acres that were cooperating. And so we had these boxes set up. Now there's some learning curve with that too, with trying to do the jab pole in the holes.
in the box, trying to put them to sleep.
Didn't
we have a net we put on them and run out in that net?
So that was later. Yeah. So me and Demarais had to come up with that, after this.
Yes.
This was also a learning curve. So this second year we only caught 13.
That's right.
The issue we were having is there was an assumption that the button bucks would be the first one to go in to these boxes to the bait. Just like in a food plot, when you see one coming out, it's usually a button buck
by itself.
Yeah, by himself. Well, what we figured out with these boxes is that we were catching a bunch of does.
I remember that. Yeah.
And so one thing we changed after that was putting trail cameras. Now back then it was just starting to get digital. It was cutty back.
That's
digitals,
right. Cutty back. Yeah.
But we were setting every single box every day and checking every single box every day. So after that,
running you to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we weren't having a whole lot of success. We were catching a lot of does because they were going in the box first.
Yeah.
I guess not letting that fawn go in there until they checked it out. Mm-hmm. So that was a learning curve. And then after that year, and not having a whole lot of success, Demarais asked me, and I think y'all had a meeting too of what to do going forward. We still want to do 3 more years. I was really invested. I was at the MSU deer pens at this time too. But I was doing part-time. I was taking classes. I was working part-time at Lowe's and the deer pen and all this. I was trying to be out here as much as possible, but I was seeing all these things, and Demarais was told both me and the technician he hired, it's like, write up, changes you would make for next year. And I wrote a book,
You studied it.
Because, I was invested. This is where I grew up.
That's right.
And
you set traps on land that you
shot my first
all
deer,
your life,
and I knew all these people, I grew up with them.
Because we come in, I told it a little bit, Brent, but we come in, and they'd hired a guy the first time, a dental guy, and Mr. Wayne West, which is Caleb Westmoreland's granddaddy. He was, he's old school. And Mr. Wayne said he'd come in and caught that boy asleep 3 or 4 times. And we were funding this operation.
Right.
All of us give him money. And he said, Chris, I'm going to be honest with you now. I ain't the way I was raised. So when Pierce started in, we had a meeting with Demarais and a bunch of them, and so we had our group there, and we'd already kind of did one of them. Had that straw vote. We'd already ready.
What Mick calls a Nemo washing.
Yeah, right.
Meeting before the meeting. Right. Where you already come to a consensus.
So we already knew it. So we got in, and Mr. Wayne stood up there, and he said, Mr. Dr. Demarais, he said, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We've been thinking about this thing, and we want to hire Pierce Young. And he's like, well, he said, no, and we need to vote. And I said, no, I think we want to hire Pierce. And it was it. I mean, that's.
Yeah, and I didn't know that.
No, that's right. Yes, sir. And it was a done deal. I mean, that was.
Yeah.
Mr. Wayne wasn't taking them. No, he done tired of that fella taking them siestas over.
Yeah.
He was worried about that guy making $13 an hour or $12, whatever he's paying him. Sleeping.
Yeah. So it worked out. I was kind of run ragged doing a bunch. I was doing too much.
But you turned that thing around, man.
And so I decided to take off 2 semesters.
Yeah.
From school.
That.
I said, this is a good opportunity, good
experience that nobody else have.
Right. And working with Dr. Demarais, I wanted to do this.
To learn.
I wanted, and I felt like there was a lot of things we could change. And me and Demarais had talked about a lot of those things we wanted to change. Things like putting the camera up on untripped or unset boxes, to see what's coming in. Get the button buck coming in first, getting them used to, not the doe. So we would leave them just
let them
unset.
eat in the box. That's right.
Get used to it until that button buck is the first one. Or if there's not a button buck or a 1-year-old buck,
move the box.
Move the box.
Yeah.
So using the cameras more strategically.
But that net was big too now.
So that was another thing. So we had these drop nets.
Got them from Virginia, you said?
Yeah, they were on loan from Mississippi State to Virginia. So I went up, drove up, got them, and we came, set them up. So now we had 24 box traps that we were strategic about.
And 2 nets, wasn't it?
4. We ended up having 4
nets. Okay.
Set up, and so we were only running the boxes that we knew were going to catch something. We were only setting the tripwire on some of those.
Yeah.
Had to make some modifications. We weren't using the jab pole anymore. We had devised this sock net, this bag net to run deer in, and all this stuff. Made it way more efficient than what we were trying to do, easier on the deer and all that. So that next year, me and someone who had retired, Jim Gurrell, he was also a landowner.
Jim, man.
God bless him.
Jim was a good man.
No longer with us now, but
he was a good man.
One of the nicest fellas you'd ever meet. And a hardworking guy too.
Yeah. I forgot about Mr. Jim working.
Yeah, Jim Gurrell. So me and him, and me, I was all in. I was young, and we were. Y'all
were mowing them down, man.
So we started pre-baiting in like October. We went to March.
Till the horns fell off.
Yeah. And so what I was doing, I was trying to get students from Mississippi State to help set the nets too with us, because we were going 7 days a week from October to March. We were going 7 days a week. We would run boxes, check them all day, work up the deer we had in boxes, and then at 3 o'clock we go sit nets till 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Y'all set several right back here.
Yeah, just right back here. Caught some. So I mean, it was a grind. But we did it. I got that number here somewhere. So we went from 3 the first year, 13 with the boxes, and then we caught 61.
That's right, that third year.
Yeah,
you turned it around. Ain't no doubt.
So we did it a couple more years. After that, Demarais had put me in charge of getting some technicians that would be willing to take off like I did. And I would kind of coordinate. So we did it that total of 5 years,
Yep.
And at the end of it, we had 182 target bucks. Button bucks, 1-year-old bucks that we had tagged and released on site.
Roughly 200.
Roughly 200,
Man.
And so from then, it was on the landowners to get us pictures,
Yes. And monitor them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not counting out of that 182 target bucks, we also made y'all tag when we dropped the net.
Oh, we were tagging everything.
We were tagging everything. We made them because we had to.
Had them
anyway.
That's right.
So our deal was, me personally, I want to look at several things. I want to look at where they go, how far they roam, and y'all remember y'all tagged some older bucks, 7, 8 points. And it was cool because I've got a lot of information that I use to this day from knowing where they go.
Like a lot of good information.
Oh,
came
my
from
God.
that
There was a
study.
lot of good information, and we're still working
there.
You know, it's been, you know, we started that 15 years ago.
That's right.
And because it didn't have a grad student on,
I found the CD. I don't know if y'all can see it.
Yeah.
But it's 2011, 2012, and look, I ain't seen him in years. And he said, "That's my handwriting." And he would think, I lose everything, but I kept up.
Yeah.
I still got the booklet and the CD.
Yeah, it had a lot of videos, a lot of pictures of that. You know,
That's awesome.
So it was good. We had to let those deer try to get to 5 years old.
That's right. And so you think about y'all. The first ones we got were 5, but then we had the ones behind it had to come.
That's right. So
And they put a metal tag in the ear. We hit a little metal tag in there. We'll get to that story in a second. And then we had the floppy cattle tags.
Yeah, on both sides,
On
different
both sides.
colors. And at that time, you know, it's just starting to get into IR cameras, not color images. So we wanted to have different number sets as well.
So you don't get confused.
Yeah. So if we didn't see a color, we could know what it was
By his number.
Yeah, and then from there, you know, we measured if it was a 1-year-old buck, we measured those antlers. But then if we were getting what we call recapture pictures, we had to measure those in the pictures. Well, we had we were fortunate that a previous grad student at Mississippi State created the program buckscore.com.
Right.
There with Bronson, Strickland, and Demarais, where you could take those images
And run a little score on them.
and get a score on them. So that's how we were getting those measurements later.
And what he's saying, older, as we were sending the pictures in, so each landowner was assigned, if he got a buck with tags, we took all the pictures we could to him, and we sent it to a
Still got that album. You got
a website. Got an album of them. Yeah.
Yeah, we had an email address.
Had email address to send it to. That's right.
And we put it out there. Back then, you know, social media wasn't as big as it is now, but we were putting up flyers and
We were begging people not to shoot them.
Yeah, trying to get people not to shoot them. You know.
Here we go. But
and so it ended up.
See the flyers in the gas stations.
Yes, sir. We had them.
Yep, up there at Carson's store.
Yeah, we had 85. Big, you know, he was the highlight on one of the things.
Yeah.
That was probably the worst thing we ever did, but put him on there.
Yeah, our local QDMA chapter did a lot of work around that.
That's right.
Because I remember Tommy
Me and
Foster
you and
trying to
Tommy,
explain that buck score program. Well, you measured it.
Yeah, Tommy was in on. Tommy helped us a good bit too.
Oh yeah. So
Tommy was a lot of help.
So we had to. So that we started the thing with the darting in the 2009-2010 season. We had to get these deer to the 2018 season for everything to be at least 5 years old, and that's when the study really ended. You know.
Yeah.
Now
Did I shoot the last buck?
You shot one of them.
That pink,
that old
pink
one.
tag, big six. I think
Big old old. He was
half.
old.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, because the pink tag ones were the last ones we used.
Yeah.
And we never tagged a 1-year-old pink tag deer.
Yeah.
It was just fawns that last year. And that last year too, a lot of people may know now, you know, the new MSU Deer Lab extension professor, Dr. Jacob Dykes.
He was the last.
He was the last technician that worked.
He replaced the
for
Bronson, the Strickland.
Yeah, so he's replacing Bronson now. Bronson is part-time moving out, but so a lot of connections there, you know, with that study too.
The one thing that I remember, and I want our listeners to think about this. So, and he's probably got some of the data, but I can just remember this, and I'm gonna try to go through it pretty fast. So when they were 1.5, man, everybody's getting pictures, high five and sending 2.5 years old. Man, we were sending pictures. Everything was good. When they got 3.5. We started seeing some of them back off. Now, we always had outliners in this 24,000 acres.
Yeah.
We had 100 acres. We had 300 acres that people didn't get in. We had other ones. Well, let me tell you, when you let them go, they will go across the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so from 3.5 to 4.5
Right.
was the biggest.
So
What's the biggest fall off? And you probably got those numbers.
We only had 22% of that 180.
Yes.
To
at 4.5.
At 4.5. We only had 6 total. make it to 5
at the end.
At the end.
So let me tell y'all something.
Wow.
Yep.
These are people, and I'm not going to say no names because they're friends of me and Pierce's, and I could say a lot of shit, but I ain't going to. But
famous last word.
These are people that big buck hunters, managers, spend a lot of money on hunting.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't help themselves.
Yeah, well, some
they would kill them. And a lot of our members, look, they paid their money just like I did, but they couldn't take it and they shot them. Mm-hmm. And I was finding them at my deer plant. They'd come up there and the ears be sliced. But what they didn't know, there was a little small tag in the metal one. And I've got 4 or 5 of them that they shot. Yeah. Then as years go by, workers that work for them, and everyone said, man, he shot them. They didn't know, and they'd shoot him. They'd, hey, man, don't you say nothing. Don't say nothing to Chris. Because we was really wanting this thing to work.
Put a lot of time and money in it.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You start talking about $30,000 a year, $25,000 or $30,000 a year for 5 years. That's $150,000 any way you look at it.
Right.
And look, I give the old Toyota. Pierce run the old Toyota. Remember my old Toyota I had?
That was a truck.
That was a good truck. I let them have the old Toyota. They was driving that little Toyota around, and it was sad for me. Now, we did get one Boone and Crockett out of the deal. Mm-hmm. And
a couple, actually.
Yeah, I forgot about that. There's another one that got killed. But it just showed you how people kill them from 3 to 4.
Yeah.
And they can't take they can't. I've always said is you can put a football helmet on a deer and put a rack on it and they're going to shoot it. Mm-hmm. That's just bottom line.
Yeah, and this was an area, like you said.
These are managed areas. This ain't core land. This ain't the national forest. This is people that's got 7 to 1,000 to 1,500,
people
2,000
with a big
acres.
investment in that land.
Mm-hmm. Big investment, a lot of money, and are crazy about deer.
Now you look at some of those 3-year-olds that got shot. They were exceptionally good. Pretty deer.
I've got
already,
2 right now. And I'll get you pictures of them.
Remember we went to that fella's house that night?
Oh,
he'd been shooting them.
He'd been shooting them.
Yeah.
And he had several.
Yeah.
And I mean, and then some people shot them just for meanness. Oh, that's stupid. That ain't their deer. That's stupid. Boom. But we wasn't doing it. We didn't tell you, hey, don't shoot them. We kind of urge people, if you would, shoot him later, or if you do shoot him, let us know.
Yeah.
If he gets shot, we can't control it. Let us know. They wouldn't do it. They'd snuck them out. And
we had a lot of deer also just move off the co-op. We can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, we had one go 15 miles.
Yeah, 15 miles.
Yep.
You know,
but majority.
A good bit.
Majority, 85% of them stayed home.
Yeah. I mean, and
that was cool.
You look at some of those, and I've got some numbers on the dispersal stuff. We can talk about that later, but I mean, you look at some of those 3-year-old bucks, and this kind of goes back to our earlier conversation. In the state, the average 5-year-old buck is 110, 120, depending on where you're at. If you're in the Delta 130, maybe. Well, these 3-year-old bucks, a lot of them were making well over that, 130, 140.
Or superstar. I mean, because you took roughly 200 deer out of one of the best places in the state of Mississippi to grow them.
Good area.
Good genetic code. Mm-hmm. But
good soil. Good, a lot of good.
But man, I'm just telling you, it goes back to that right there. Pierce, you know it.
Yeah.
You got to be a little more political, but that finger, if they would just let them got another year. And then if they shot every 150 in the dang study, I'd be happy. Mm-hmm. But they just wouldn't let them get there. And I don't think they did it intentionally.
Right.
I just think they couldn't control themselves.
I tell you what it helped me with. And it's about the time that I started coming sitting down here with a video camera.
Mm-hmm. You videoed a lot of them tag deer.
I videoed a lot of tag deer down here. But it helped me, and this goes back, and I think this goes back to what we were just talking about, and it'll tie in, I think, to some of y'all's takeaways. It really helped me age deer because there was no doubt. I had the tag in the ear with the color, so I knew what age he was, and you could watch and see all those characteristics.
And Brent would text me.
I learned more about aging deer just from sitting down here, being able to watch tag deer.
Absolutely, and I did too. I got a lot of experience, seeing, what these characteristics look like, and it goes back to our earlier conversation, and too at the time, I mean, the reason we were doing the study was kind of, how what are these deer going to get to at 5, and so I would say probably now the mindset may be completely different.
Dr. Maris told me, he said, Chris, if we could have took 100 to 5, we could have that study. But they shot every dang one of them. So the study had to become the management buck and the spike and 3 because we didn't have enough.
There were 2 objectives that one I didn't mention is, if they got to 5, 6, 7, where is the maximum?
Because we agreed.
Where's that increase?
When's it start coming down? And we agreed not to shoot. And some of them did get 6 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know where 2 of them's mounted right now. They were 7.
That's right.
They went up and down, up and down.
So that was one objective that we weren't able to meet just because they weren't making it to the age. But the other objective was, the management part, and we could take that out to 4. 22% of, we had enough of a sample size to where we could start doing that analysis, and that's what we did, and we got some good data out of it.
The funny part, and I'll just to throw the lollipop on there, but we shot a doe last year.
Yeah.
And she was 13 years old. She was still down here. And I wouldn't shoot her, and my neighbor shot her. He let some cat from Air Force Base shoot her. But she had babies.
Did Caleb kill one?
Caleb killed one, too, with a bow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But up here on Doc's place, a guy shot one. And at 12, she still had 2 babies.
Oh, yeah.
Because we was getting videos of her. And I don't think the guy up there intended on shooting her there again.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, fella, you just shot a deer with 2 tags in their ears. I never saw them. I never saw him, but anyway.
Yeah.
You could have tied a damn bow around him and he'd have shot him probably, but it just, it is what it is, but it was I got to see if you manage your place right and you got the habitat and you got the food and you don't pressure them, they don't leave. Yeah. Because the biggest deer in our study was 170, number 85.
High 160.
Yeah, high 160s, right at 170. Mm-hmm. The biggest deer in our study. And when I helped, pull him out of a box, he was a 3-point.
No, he was a spike.
Spike, that's
6
right.
Inch spike.
Yeah, 6-inch spike. And we pulled him out of the box. We'd put him asleep, pulled him out of the box, weighed him, give him his, y'all always shot him with some antibiotics and then checked him and then put him back in. Mm-hmm. And he grew, but at 3 years old, he was 140 inches.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was just
23
superstar. 23 inches wide. I mean, he was just mega 8-point.
Mega 8-point.
At 3. And so we was like, man. And then here comes the snowball. Then people started shooting them. I mean, they just started shooting them. And so at that time,
Orange
at 3,
85 was a legend.
He was a legend.
Oh, he was. Everyone knew.
And everybody had seen him everywhere. Yeah, I saw him.
I just found out they put him on flyers in the gas station.
Yes, that's why they saw him. Some guy pumping gas, think, man, that thing still would eat good. But when 85 was 3, we still had 120-something deer still in the. But that next year, man, I don't know. I look back at it, and I loved it. Mm-hmm. I don't have any regrets. The experience you got.
Oh, yeah.
And the knowledge that I learned that I can teach to other people.
Well, let's get into some of those results. I know we're going kind of long, but so we actually got some pretty good data from getting those deer 2, 3, 4 years old. We had a good sample size. So the way we analyzed this, and the idea was, if all of the 1-year-olds were spikes, we wanted to look at small spikes versus average spikes, versus if it was a 1-year-old 1/2-inch spike, versus those 8-inch or multiple antler 1-year-olds, and so the way we broke it up, well, first we analyzed individual, predicted how predictive could you be from 1 to 5, and we when we analyzed that data, there was very low predictive power. You couldn't predict the size individually, but when we grouped them into thirds, so the bottom third, middle third, upper third, and they kind of done this in Texas, where the idea was the best deer, the highest 1-year-old bucks would typically be your highest older bucks, but something might happen to them. They might move to somewhere lower nutrition, or they get hurt. They could probably drop down into a different category. Those middle ones, kind of like Orange 85, we call swing deer. They could be your best buck, like Orange 85 was, or it could be, your worst buck. You didn't really know where they landed.
Year to year, maybe, or just
year to year, but we're really trying to look at, all right, at 1 and 4 years old, do those in the bottom third stay in the bottom third? Those would be our management bucks or coal bucks, because when they weren't grouped together, just looking at individuals, you couldn't predict where they were. But as groups,
that makes sense.
They grouped together. So those what we saw, what the results ended up being was most of the 1-year-old bucks in that bottom third. When you got to 4, they were still in the bottom third.
Yeah,
they weren't even average most of the time.
That shows behind.
So that goes to what we're talking about on how we can use this data to figure out management bucks. You don't want to shoot those 6-inch spikes, or you might be shooting that 160, 170-inch 8-point.
That's right.
Like Orange 85.
Upper third of those spikes.
And we don't know when they were born. That timing.
Yeah. If it was late born.
Later.
But what we saw is they were not compensating, over time. They were not, these bottom third deer as a group were staying in the bottom third. So when I'm out working with landowners and they want a category,
that becomes that bottom as in ones they won't shoot.
Yeah. So I always recommend, if you can do a camera survey, even at 1 year of age, you can start taking out those lower quality bucks that are not going to be your trophies, not going to be your average.
Don't say that, Pierce.
Oh yeah.
If you don't call it a cull, because to me that's a little different than the guy.
But he's talking about 1.5.
Well, look.
So let me.
I'm gonna get to something now.
Okay,
I got.
All right.
So let me.
Where's that? Hold on. Let me get in my boot and get that whiskey out.
So let me talk to you about the 1-year-old management buck right now.
Okay.
Because based on this study, we know we're not shooting those 4, 5, 6-inch spikes, 7, 8-inch spikes, or like they used to do, all the spikes. We now know. I still hear people doing
the ones that barely crack the skin.
1, 2, 3, depending on where you're at. 3-inch spikes, typically at the most. Some of the better areas I work with, maybe a 4-inch spike is still in. But we're doing a camera service to know what that bottom third is. And one reason that works is so that at 3 years old, that's your 6, 7-point 3-year-old buck. The older they get, the smarter they get.
I got a 6-point gene in here. Look, you come down here
on my wall.
You come down here and you're going to shoot a 6-point because I'm going to make you.
Everyone has that 6-point, 7-point
problem.
That's everywhere because you have an average. 50% of your buck population is going to be around the average. 25% is going to be above average. 25% is going to be below average. So if you're targeting, and so if
that bell curve, I mean that's
No.
So
the bell,
you like that?
That's that.
He loves bell curve. Bell curve, a limiting factor.
That's right. The bell curve. So when you have 1-year-old bucks, think about the average 1-year-old buck when you're out there sitting on the stand and you see them in the field. What are they? They are the youngest, dumbest things out there.
Yeah.
If you've hit your doe quota early, late season January, they're on lockdown after the rut. What are you seeing a lot of? A lot of 1-year-old, young.
He calls it yearlings. Yeah,
yearling bucks. And so what that the other thing we hadn't got into is the dispersal. 81%.
The ones that leave.
81% of these bucks we tagged dispersed to a different property. Only 19% stayed on the same property.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So the average dispersal distance was about 2 miles. About 60% went over a mile. And then we had some of those that went 15 miles. Some went to Alabama. Some went to North County.
Yeah,
Prophet Sports.
County,
up that way. But
some of them stayed home.
And some of them stayed home. So
they're like people, homebodies.
So we would see this with the cameras because we had cameras on pre-bait sites and trap sites and all this stuff. So I got to see this. And like that one that went 15 miles. In December, he was on one property where we had a trap. He was coming back to a box trap. In January, he was 15 miles away.
Yep.
Most of the bucks that are dispersing from that pre-rut period to the post-rut period when they're 1.5 years old.
Yep.
So what I tell people, especially in January, that late season post-rut, those are the bucks that have established a home range on your property. The ones that didn't disperse are staying on your property as well. There's some research out there showing Demarais did this in Texas when he was at Texas Tech. If you orphan those buck fawns, they're going to stick around. They're not going to disperse. If you're shooting enough does, typically you're going to have.
If you got enough food and habitat,
they're going to stick around.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of those bucks in January are not the same 1-year-old bucks you have. But those next year are your 2-year-old management bucks.
Right.
Those are now they've established their home range. They're going to be those 1-inch, 2-inch spikes. Those are going to be those 6, 7.5 points. Yeah. And the older they get, the harder they're going to get.
So them 2-year-old spikes, blow them down.
So, well, let me back up on that one a little bit.
Oh God, here we go now.
All right. So one thing I most of the state, when I'm doing camera surveys and stuff like that, one thing I see is I know if it's a 1, 2, 3-inch spike, a lot of times that's a good criteria to go with for a 1-year-old. Even if it's a 2-year-old and it's 3-inch spike, you cannot mess up. It's going to be your lower quality bucks.
So that's the most certain time to make that decision. There's less room or less margin for error. I think is what you're getting at. Like
that's right.
1.5-year-old, but then you get to that long one. Maybe that's a 2. You don't know if that's your best 1.5 or maybe your dink 2.
I tell when I write a management recommendation, especially with these camera surveys, which I typically recommend if you're going to go down this route, I'm recommending those 1 to 3 inch spikes, no 2-year-olds. And I'll explain why in a minute. But then 3+, if it has, a lot of times if it's 7 points or less, in the Delta and some of the big
blow
black,
them down.
There are some lower quality 8s that might get on the hit list. But in general, most places, if it's got less than 7 points, by 3, because from 3 to 5, they don't typically add more points, right? So those are the ones that were in that bottom third. So we're always looking at that bottom third at 3, 4. And then once we get to 5, they're all 100% of what they're going to be. I say if he's 5, it doesn't matter if he's small, basket rack, or giant. If he's 5, that's as big as he's going to be. Take him out.
And I'm going to tell you, they make some good Hawaiian sausage. I know of a place that you can carry them.
That's right.
Take them all the time.
Yeah. So with the reason I say don't go with the 2-year-olds is because there is more risk than reward at that point. So let's say you see a buck out there. He's a 7 point. You think he's a 3-year-old. You shoot him and he ends up being a 2. Yeah, that's still average, below average 2-year-old. No skin off anybody's nose. Now, if you see a buck and you think he's 2, and you might think he's 1, and he's a 4 or 5 point, well, if you're wrong, that's your best.
He's the one.
Superstar.
That's your superstar. That's your all-star rookie.
I don't shoot them unless they're 3 to 4 years old, and I don't allow nobody else to make that decision.
Yeah.
I try to talk them through it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I'll feed him an extra year not to make a mistake and shoot him when he's wrong.
Yeah.
Now, because I'm trying to grow these.
So, and then it goes back to the goal. So reasons why you wouldn't want to do management bucks is if your goal is to not get trophy bucks, take more bucks off. If you just want to try to get as many bucks to 5 years old as possible, then don't shoot these younger bucks. Yeah. Don't shoot these 1-year-old 3-inch spikes.
Yeah.
But if you need to take out a lot of mouths, off this property, you're hitting your doe quota. You want just the best ones because a lot of people are getting to that upper third is what's most important to get to 5.
Yeah.
That bottom third, those are the ones you're just feeding extra groceries. They're taking food out of everybody else's mouth.
Pierce, I don't know 10 people, and I got a big network. I couldn't name you 5 people. How about I'm gonna go from 10 to 5 that quick that could identify spikes and shoot them, little ones. I just wouldn't do it, including me. I just wouldn't do it.
If it's hard and antler, less than 3 inches, how are you going to mess that up?
Third, yeah.
And he's less than 100 pounds.
And that's the thing. That's what makes that 1.5 a safe call to make from a management standpoint.
So what are you going to confuse a 3-inch spike with?
Yeah, you're right about that now. Oh, 1.5. I keep thinking 1.5. Okay, 1.5. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
1.5 years old.
Yes. I agree
3-inch
with you.
spike.
Oh, yeah.
Because a button buck is not going to have hard antler.
That's correct. That's right. Yeah.
If it's a 3-inch 2-year-old, he also is in the bottom third. Yes. He needs to be taken out.
Yeah, I misspoke. I kept thinking of a half instead of 1.5. No. I agree with you.
That's right.
You could bomb him down.
Yeah.
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 It wouldn't hurt a thing.
So again, or what a lot of people in Mississippi call a yearling, 6-month-old, not going to have a hardened antler.
Yeah.
You know. Now, where I have seen some properties, you know, in early season, October, if you've got a button buck without spikes and he's, you know, 100 pounds next to a spotted fawn, well, that's actually a 1-year-old. He needs to go.
I got you.
But
late bloomer.
he's going to be in the bottom third.
Yeah.
And he may look like he's a button buck, but he's probably just breaking the hair hardened antler, you know. And I've seen those on properties, you know. And
how bad is it going to hurt you if you waited till they were 3 to kill them? So you know you don't make a bad mistake.
So again, with a 1-year-old,
yeah,
no risk.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you
See what I'm saying?
But if you let them go,
it's just harder to kill them.
Now breeding.
Well, what I gathered when you're talking about dispersal, if you let them go, then you got a higher risk just statistically of one of your better deer dispersing and leaving your property. Mm-hmm. Is there anything to that? Like if you take him out,
one of the younger ones,
a certain
being born after
him,
him,
they're going to disperse. If only 19% stay and 81% leave, if you take out that deer at 1.5, are you statistically less likely for one of your preferred deer, one of your better deer,
to stay more likely and not leave
just by the numbers?
So
makes good sense.
That is something I don't have an answer to. Yeah. It makes sense.
It does. Because you're leaving. You're making a void.
Took them out.
Yeah. You're making a spot for it.
So what I know.
Putting a spot on the kicking team for him.
That's right. So what I've seen and what I know, kind of like an example I gave earlier, that property that went from shooting no bucks to 26 bucks.
Yeah. You
know, on 800 acres. You know, they went from having a bunch of their deer leave, their better deer leave at 1 and 2 years old, to once they were taking out a lot of those bucks, making more room on their property, they noticed a lot more of those staying. Now they had a bunch of bucks dispersing into. Some of those were better, some of them were still low quality, and those that were not shot at 2 that dispersed on them, they would get them as those 3-year-olds, you know. So it's a compounding effect. If you're targeting, you know, 1 3-inch spikes at 1, not shooting 2-year-olds, but then going to 3, those 7 points or less and you're trying to shoot 7 points at 3, 4, and 5, you have this compounding effect of taking more deer off the property and allowing more space. We call it managing the standing crop, just like a garden. You know, if you got a home garden, you know, taking out the weeds, you know, or taking out the crops, or like crop tree, you know, being in a forest
stand,
you know, that subdominant tree, you know,
splits in the cankers,
taking those out, giving more root space, more canopy space for them to thrive, right? You know, and that's what we want for our best.
Well, you're just taking competition out.
That's right.
And Brent knows this. Brent's hunted enough of me. If they're 3.5 and they're 6 point, I shoot every one of them. If they're 3.5, 4 and they're 7 point, I shoot every one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't even. And I said, look, I tell guys, Chris, I don't want to make a mistake. I said, if you shoot a 6 point, as long as he don't weigh 100 pounds,
that's right.
You ain't made a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to shoot those 5, 6, 7.1-year-old.
No.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's the guy wearing them Nike high tops with red and black.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it that way.
That's right.
Man, that's a lot of good information.
It is.
A lot of things to consider. And
absolutely.
There's a lot more to it than just
we're going to have to bring him back.
Calling something a cull.
Yes.
Or, you know, it just, you know, cull or management buck often gets kicked around because people use it justifying they just shot a buck they shouldn't have.
That's right.
And it's an easy way. That's an easy way to rationalize or just explain it away. And I think that's why a lot of people get skeptical about it. Because there's a lot of head bumping and debate about cull bucks and the way I take it, you're not necessarily talking about
changing the genetic strain.
No,
and
I think that's what we probably should have talked about a little bit. You cannot change the genetics. They've tried that down in South Texas with helicopters.
They've shot them and shot them and shot them.
Yeah. And, so that's not even what we're talking about in this.
But I can keep him from breeding when I shoot him.
Right. And so what we saw in this study, we didn't mention this, when we grouped all these bottom third, top third, removing those bottom third, it increased the average at the 4-year-old age class by 18 to 20 inches. Boone and Crockett. Boone and Crockett.
That's big.
That's a lot.
increase the average because you've got fewer.
You're taking out.
It's a math problem.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean, so you didn't make this deer any better, maybe, but you took the small ones out of the average.
Yeah.
So that's a math problem.
But on a big place that you're managing, by taking them out, like you said, Brent, that dispersal and leaving that room for these other ones to strive more food, everything else.
Exactly. More nutrition for those better bucks. More room to keep those bucks there, less competition.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, that I've seen that's been beneficial, a couple clubs come to mind, but I got to them, and they were shooting a good number of does. They were letting bucks to get 5, 6, 7 years old. But even the kids and first-timers, they were not allowed to shoot bucks, And that kind of rubs me in the wrong way a little bit. Even the kids aren't able to shoot. So one in particular I talked about.
You got to let a kid shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just now,
to me, if it were me in my place, I wouldn't care what it was with a kid.
No.
But some places aren't like that. But I told them, look, if you did we did this camera survey, I was like, you've got 45 bucks that I put on this hit list that anybody can shoot.
Let these kids shoot them.
Let the kids shoot them. Let anybody shoot.
Yeah.
Whoever did first.
How about this? Make sure they get shot.
Yeah.
That's so. I was like, you're protecting all these bucks, but there's. I've looked through the cameras. There are 45 on this property that need to be shot. Let somebody shoot.
Yeah. And at some point, as you saw down here, nature's gonna hit that reset button if you don't.
You got that right.
Mm-hmm.
Had an EHD. Mm-hmm. The worst. Me and William talked about it. He couldn't believe it. And me and Bronson talked about it because look, when you have a deal like this happen, you call everybody with some more knowledge than what you got and pick their brain.
And they came back.
And I called one of my buddies that's a big biologist up north, and that they have it all the time. He said, Chris, you're going to be fine. He said, but it's going to hurt your feelings for a couple of years.
That's right.
And it did. I went from seeing 30 deer, $15, to seeing 3.
Look, we talked about it, and this we'll be quick because I don't. We could go down a whole nother rabbit hole. We had talked about your big numbers were down. You didn't have the big bucks, and I think you had enough
lot. Deer, and they was wiping my habitat
I don't think you were killing enough bucks.
That's right, no doubt.
Yeah.
And I'll kill 15, 16 bucks a year now.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Look, it's funner to shoot the management bucks than it is to kill the trophy.
Oh yeah.
Really.
So
I'll kill more. My girls will knock them in the ground.
That's right.
When I get,
and
look, like you said, they get older, they're hard to kill.
Mm-hmm. It's fun watching them, and it's good if you can shoot a lot of management does, but there's a lot of management bucks out there you could be pulling the trigger on too, and that's fun too.
Yeah.
Ain't no doubt.
That's Look, I think that's a good conversation, and it's refreshing to hear that because you often think all you hear is that one side of that equation: shoot the does, and there's something to be said. Like at some point, you start looking at total numbers, and there are bucks you just need to shoot.
Well, people don't want to kill 35 does in one buck,
right?
But when I started managing this thing right, me and Brent talked about it. If you manage a property right and it's enough size, acres, son, you better get ready because you're going to be shooting a bunch of management bucks. Way a bunch. We could kill about 20 a year down here if we can find them.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
So
anywhere, it can be the cherry on top. You check all those boxes, puts more deer on the hit list, and who doesn't like shooting a deer? You know what I mean?
I like shooting a lot.
So just taking this information from this research just makes you be a little more strategic on how you do it. Makes you a smarter hunter, smarter land manager too.
Well, Brent, that was
there's
good
a lot
on quality
to take in. I'm gonna soak this in for a little while. I think I'm gonna enjoy sitting down editing this because I'm sure I'm gonna pick up some things that we missed over. But
Pierce, we're gonna get us a drink. We're gonna be right back in it just a second. So
let's do it.
Yeah, we're gonna take advantage of them while we got him. We're gonna do another one on some food plot seeds.
So it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, swapping gears.
All right,
let's do it.
We'll do
appreciate
another one in a
you
little
listening.
while. Thank you.